Okay, so Plato versus Aristotle. You've probably heard the names, right? It's pretty much the most famous showdown in the entire history of ideas. I mean, this debate has shaped how we think for like 2,400 years. But what was the actual disagreement? What were they really fighting about? Well, that's what we're going to break down right now.
So a lot of people start right here with this amazing painting, The School of Athens. And honestly, it tells the popular story in one perfect image. See the two guys in the middle? You've got the older one, Plato, pointing up toward the heavens, this realm of perfect, transcendent ideas. And right next to him is his student, Aristotle, doing the complete opposite. His hand is pointing down, grounding us in this world, the world we can see and touch. It's the perfect visual for the classic matchup, right? The idealist versus the realist.
But before we really get into their philosophies, it's super important to remember the context here. I mean, who were these guys to each other? Aristotle wasn't just some random philosopher who disagreed with Plato. No way. He was Plato's student at his famous academy for 20 years. Think about that. This wasn't some quick debate. It was this long, deep relationship between a legendary teacher and, well, his absolute most brilliant student. All right, so let's start with Plato. Let's figure out what he meant with that famous pointing up gesture. What exactly was he getting at?
This gets us to his most famous idea, the theory of forms. Here's the deal. For Plato, the world that we see and touch, the physical world, it isn't the real world, not really. He saw it more like a shadow, a fuzzy, imperfect copy of a higher, much truer reality. And that ultimate reality exists in this other realm, a place filled with pure, unchanging, perfect ideas, which he called forms.
I know, that sounds pretty abstract, right? So let's make it super simple. Think about a chair, just any chair. You can imagine a kitchen chair, an office chair, a throne, a broken stool. They're all so different. But for Plato, every single one of those physical chairs is just an imperfect copy, a cheap knockoff, of one single perfect, ideal form of a chair, the pure idea of chairness itself. We can't see it, but our minds can understand it. That's the real deal. So, if you follow that logic, it leads to a pretty radical conclusion. If the physical world is just a bunch of flawed copies, then what does that say about our senses? Well, for Plato, it means you can't trust them. Your eyes, your ears, your sense of touch, they're only showing you the shadows, not the real thing. He believed the only way to get to the truth, to that higher reality, was through pure reason and logical thinking. And that's why he points up. He's pointing away from the messy physical world towards the pure, perfect world of ideas.
Okay, so that's Plato's take on reality. Now let's turn to his student, Aristotle. What's the deal with his gesture downwards? What was he all about?
Well, Aristotle took a dramatically different approach. He basically said, whoa, hold on a minute. To understand reality, he argued, you don't look up to some other world of perfect forms. Nope. You look down at the specific, tangible things right here in front of you. For him, knowledge starts with your senses, with experience. You have to observe, you have to collect data, you have to categorize things in the real world to have any hope of understanding.
And there you have it. That's the simple myth, right? Plato, the ultimate rationalist, pointing to the abstract world of forms, trusting only reason. And then you have Aristotle, the ultimate empiricist, pointing to the physical world, trusting his senses and observations. One guy looks to the heavens, the other to the earth. It's a really clean, simple, and honestly a very powerful way to think about that.
But you know what's coming, don't you? As is almost always the case, especially in philosophy, the simple story isn't quite the whole story.
Yeah, because when you actually dig into what these guys wrote, that super clean black and white picture, it starts to break down. It gets a lot more complicated.
And check this out, because this quote really flips the simple story on its head. It turns out Aristotle, just like Plato, made a big distinction between simple opinion, what you get from your senses, and real, true knowledge. And again, just like his teacher, he thought that true knowledge was all about understanding universal concepts, not just collecting a bunch of random particular facts.
So you see where this is going. That whole Plato loves reason, Aristotle loves senses thing, it's a huge oversimplification. They both believed true knowledge was about universal ideas. They both thought reason was absolutely essential to doing philosophy. And they were both chasing after the same ultimate goal, to understand the fundamental nature of reality. They were on the same quest.
Okay, so if they agreed on so much,
Then where's the big disagreement? What's the real debate here? Well, it turns out it's not if they used reason, but how they used it. It's all about their starting point.
And this, quote, nails it. This is the real heart of the matter. For Plato, you have to understand the universal idea first in order to make sense of any specific example. But for Aristotle, it's the complete reverse. You have to study all the specific examples first to figure out what the universal idea even is.
So you can think of it like this. Plato's method is top-down. You start with the big, universal concept, the form, and you use that to understand the particular things you see. Aristotle's method, it's bottom-up. You start by observing a ton of particular examples, and from all that data, you work your way up to understanding the universal concept. You know, a great way to see this difference is to look at their favorite subjects. Plato absolutely loved mathematics. Why? Because it's all about perfect abstract ideas. You can think about a perfect triangle with perfect angles, even though you could never draw one in the real world. It's pure top-down thinking. And Aristotle, he was obsessed with biology. He was out there classifying animals and plants. You can't do that by just thinking. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to observe hundreds of individual creatures to understand what makes a species a species. It's the ultimate bottom-up science. See the difference?
All right, so this is a super old debate, right? Two guys in ancient Athens arguing about philosophy. Why should we care about this today? Well, because this whole thing, it's not really just about them. It's about us.
What we're really talking about here is a fundamental pattern of how human beings think, top-down versus bottom-up. Do you start with a theory, or do you start with the data? Think about it. Are you the kind of person who starts with a big idea and then fits the facts into that framework? Or are you the kind of person who needs to see all the evidence first and then builds a conclusion from the ground up?
So the next time you're trying to figure something out, ask yourself, am I approaching this like a Plato or like an Aristotle? Am I starting from the big idea and working my way down, or am I building my understanding from the details on up? It's a really powerful question to ask, and it might just help you see the world and your own mind in a completely new way.